CSS, or Cascading Style Sheets, is a set of rules that enhance the appearance of web pages. In the early years of the internet, browsers adopted CSS because it presented an opportunity for better visual designs and more creativity. As browsers continue to develop and grow beyond traditional devices, CSS's capabilities developed in parallel. This development includes the introduction of responsive design in CSS and has further grown from there with layout options such as flexboxes, grids, and boxes. And you could argue that layouts is one of the most important components of designing a good web page because layouts help divide a page into different sections, thus making the page more presentable. So let's learn more about CSS web layouts. CSS can be used to enhance a web page by modifying fonts, colors, layout, size, and other style formatting options that make the web page more presentable. The browser window that is visible to the user on the screen is called the viewport. In essence, the idea behind any CSS web layout is to create an optimally designed web page that has a good viewport at any given point. In other words, CSS layouts are all about how the content of your web page is organized. When it comes to creating layouts using CSS, an important property is the display property. What does it do, you ask? The display property specifies the type of box that you want to use for a given HTML element. You might remember from an earlier course that the display property determines if a rendered box is inline or block. Box models allocate rectangles or boxes to HTML elements so CSS rules can be applied. For example, the relative CSS rule for a HTML element with an ID named sample would contain display property with a block value. The code changes the property of the display box to a block type. Layouts created using the block type are good, but evolving requirements led to the development of CSS web layouts such as Flexbox and Grid, which help create rules for multiple elements. They added more flexibility and dimensionality with better options for fine-tuning specific sections of a web page. The main difference between the two is that Flexbox is one-dimensional, while Grid, as the word implies, is two-dimensional. You will examine these in more detail over the course of the module, but for now, let's just do a brief overview. Flexbox is short for Flexible Box Model, and it was introduced before the Grid layout. For example, the Flexbox property with an ID named sample contains the display property with flex as its value. Flexbox adds responsiveness to CSS with float elements and positioning. One-dimensional refers to the fact that a given Flexbox container will arrange items in either a column or a row along its axis. The Flexbox container applied over an element can flex to shrink or expand, thus resulting in a flexible, responsive design. CSS Grid is similar to the Flexbox, except it creates a two-dimensional grid along both the row and column axes. For example, the grid rules for the sample ID can be added after adding the display property with the grid as its value. While the grid increases dimensionality and helps to create an advanced layout with relative ease, it can also lead to increased complications later if the element rules are not systematically defined. There is no strict rule on choosing which layout to use, but in general, flexboxes are more suitable when you want to create flexible elements in smaller spaces, while grids are more suitable to large-scale layouts. A separate explanation of each type of layout has been given in this video, but in practice you'll likely encounter the use of more than one layout in rendering a single page. The rules for these layouts in CSS are standardized, but that doesn't mean you are limited when it comes to creativity, aesthetics, or optimization when designing a web page. You will learn more about how to use these layouts during the course.